BioShock opens as Jack is flying on a plane somewhere over the Atlantic Ocean. From the first scene where I've already set up two aspects of Jack's story. Jack's parents have a picture of them and him, and a note with his name, so we know what it is, and the phrase, "would you kindly?" A benign phrase now, but powerful when given its meaning later. We also have Jack affirming the idea that he is
special. You were born to do great things. You know what? They were right.
Which provides a question to the audience. What about Jack is special? This question provides intrigue which wants us to find out why he's so special. We are then treated to screens, the title card, and the aftermath of a plane crash with a ring of fire surrounding us except for a single opening which we instinctively swim to. Once we swim enough, a lighthouse comes to the view, and with nowhere else to go, we head there. Once we enter, the door behind us closes and lights come on to reveal the phrase, "No gods or kings, only man," with the man behind it looking down on us, seemingly in gold as if he were both those things, showing his hypocrisy before we even know his name. In front of us, a plaque with another quote, "In what country is there a place for people like me?" and is attributed to Andrew Ryan, who we can safely assume the statue is of. From this alone, you can see Ryan sees himself as better than the common man. As we descend into the lighthouse, we are greeted with three plaques: science, industry, and art, which will be the pillar of the society that we're about to see. We also find a bathysphere with an extremely inviting lever. When we pull the lever, we start descending. Once 18 fathoms have been passed, a screen pops up with an ad before Andrew Ryan introduces himself, showing what Andrew Ryan's priorities are and introducing the idea of plasmids. He then goes to elaborate on the quote we saw earlier, explain that he created Rapture to be a place where a man is entitled to the sweat of his brow. As he says that, we're treated to an honestly beautiful looking tour of Rapture, with bright signs and wildlife swimming around, only to be interrupted with a conversation on the radio hinting trouble. We are then loaded into the mission Welcome to Rapture, and we see what Rapture is under the facade, with the unfortunate death of Johnny to a spider splicer, who then tries to rip us out of the bathysphere. Upon failing, she gives up, and we are greeted by a familiar phrase from the radio.
"Would you kindly pick up that shortwave radio?"
Upon picking it up, the voice introduces themselves as Atlas and acts as our guide through Rapture to keep us safe. As the splicer taunts us, we can see signs of protest to give us some idea of what happened before we arrived. Atlas also keeps his promise of getting rid of the splicer, while also giving us a tutorial on cameras and security drones through seeing how they interact with the splicer, so we know what happens to us when the cameras are hostile to us later. Also, the camera shows us a wrench we can use as a weapon to clear out our path and bash in the skull of the enemy in the next room. After we defeat the splicer, we hear an advertisement coming from the balcony above us.
My daddy's smarter than Einstein, stronger than Hercules, and lights a fire with a snap of his finger. Are you as good as my daddy, mister? Not if you don't visit the Gatherer's Garden, you aren't. Smart daddies get spliced at the garden.
Being drawn to the noise or seeing there's nowhere else to go, we investigate and see plasmid, and, inspired by his eyes glowing, we interact with it. I don't know how to explain how Jack would do it in universe. I mean, is he just susceptible to advertising? Did he think the Little Sister statues looked or sounded trustworthy? And why would he just inject himself with something he knows nothing about? Either way, he does, and notice him flattening now at his fingerprints, he panics and jumps over the rail and get knocked out. In his half-conscious state, Jack sees two spiders picking over his body, and when confronted by the possibility of facing a Big Daddy, they flee, selling us on the idea of how dangerous a Big Daddy is. And to further drive the point home, we see the hulking behemoth appear to us, along with what appears to be a little girl, saying some rather disturbing things.
Look, Mr. Bubbles, it's an angel. I can see light coming from his belly. Wait a minute, he's still breathing. It's all right. I know he'll be an angel soon.
Atlas makes sure we're okay with the radio message, and we see a switch spark with lightning, which prompts us to hit it with ours. That felt obvious by video game logic, but I failed to find a logical explanation to do so. The next two scenes with the walkway flooding and being surprised by a slicer is meant to sell you on the unpredictability of Rapture and add tension. Atlas then gives you a message that basically says, combine your plasmids with your weapons in combat. Also treated to a burning splicer that teaches us about damage over time and how ruthless Ryan is.
No, I won't do it again. No, please, please, don't do that. The whole thing will go. No!
After all that, Atlas gives us some motivation. Find his family and he'll help us out in return. Or at least I assume so. I assume we want to get out of Rapture along with his family, but he doesn't really promise to help us. He just says to do that for him. We're also treated to the insanity of Rapture when we see a splicer singing to a baby carriage.
It's wrong. Hush now. Mommy's gone. And Daddy too. Wait. This is happening before and none. Why aren't you here? Why is it today and not then when you were warm and sweet? Why can't Mommy hold you to her breast and feel your teeth? Oh, no. No, 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 no.
Once we kill her, we find out she was sticking to a revolver, which we now claim as her own. Atlas also tells us that it was the use of plasmas that drew people into this madness, something we injected ourselves with earlier. We also find two splicers who I presume to be partners fighting over sharing some atom, who we can swiftly put an end to and access a new area to loot. Upon looting and exiting the area the lady was in, you get a tip from Atlas.
If you spot a splicer in the water, hit him with the electrobolt.
So now we know that plasmas can be used on the environment to open new areas, damage enemies, and be used with the environment to even more efficiently damage enemies. We also find an audio diary in which we learned that there was an attack on New Year's Day 1959 and Andrew Ryan's mistress, Diane McClintock, was a victim of it.
Another New Year's, another night alone. I'm out and you're stuck in Festus, working. Imagine my surprise. Oh, I guess I'll have another drink. Here's a toast to Diane McClintock, silliest girl in Rapture. Silly enough to fall in love with Andrew Ryan. Silly enough. What happened? I'm bleeding. Oh God. What's happening?
In the ladies' room back in the direction of the objective, we see a ghost flashback to a woman upset at how splicing, shorthand for using plasma or genetic splicing, has destroyed her appearance, showing that the injection of plasmids also can lead to physical deformities.
Why do they wear those masks? Maybe there's a part of them that remembers how they used to be, how they used to look. And they're ashamed.
Above the theater, we see a little sister.
You think that's a child down there? Don't be fooled. She's a little sister now. Somebody went and turned a sweet baby girl into a monster. Whatever you thought about right and wrong on the surface, well, that don't count for much down in Rapture. Those little sisters, they carry Adam, the genetic material that keeps the wheels of Rapture turning. Everybody wants it, everybody needs it.
After Atlas explains, we also get a scene to illustrate it and for the full wrath of a Big Daddy.
That's the Big Daddy. She got his Adam. He keeps her safe.
Also, you got this line here if you didn't get it already. Anyway, you'll keep making your way only to be stopped and forced to take a detour, which is also interrupted by Andrew Ryan. He doesn't know who you are, but thinking you're CIA or KGB, he sends splicers to kill you. But you escape thanks to Atlas reopening the escape routes. And that's Welcome to Rapture. I feel it does an amazing job of keeping the player immersed in Rapture while teaching them how to survive and just general game mechanics. Now, in my previous video, I spent a section of the video talking about powers and Dishonored and the weapons of Doom. And logically, with BioShock having both, I would have a section dedicated to explaining them, but that's not the case. I spent time doing such in those videos because I believe they were the main source of enjoyment from the games. But I don't think the weapons or plasmids are the main selling point of BioShock, but rather Rapture itself. Also, the plasmids and weapons are rather self-explanatory. Here, I can sum up most of the plasmids that I use with images. There are more, but I don't feel like talking about those. There are also passive abilities called G and tonics, which fall into 3 categories: combat, engineer, and physical. I typically just take the combat ones I'm going to do with research and the wrench. I'll explain research later, it's rather simple. Engineering ones that remove failure parts and hacking, also will explain later. And physical ones that have to do with a wrench, getting health from hacking, and
standing so incredibly still that I've become invisible to the eye.
Also, the weapons and the special ammo play exactly as you'd expect. The only interesting weapon being the chemical thrower, but even then, there are plasmas that do the same thing. Even then, I typically just default to the wrench against anything except the Big Daddies. Although you can easily cheese the Big Daddies more than halfway with the electrogel in the chemical thrower. Now, a history of Andrew Ryan and Rapture. I'll give a history of other major characters in the story along with summarizations of minor characters, but I'll give their stories as they come up. Andrew Ryan is a man of great intellect who amassed a large fortune with his companies on the surface, and he used that wealth to create Rapture, a paradise to escape the world of parasites.
To build a city at the bottom of the sea, insanity. But where else could we be free from the clutching hand of the parasites? Where else could we build an economy that they would not try to control, a society that they would not try to destroy? It was not impossible to build Rapture at the bottom of the sea. It was impossible to build it anywhere else.
A parasite, in the words of Andrew Ryan, is anyone who desires charity or someone who wishes to take the work of others for themselves. Hence, is a man not entitled to the sweat of his brow?
On the surface, the parasite expects the doctor to heal them for free, the farmer to feed them out of charity. How little they differ from the pervert who prowls the streets looking for a victim he can ravish for his grotesque amusement. What is the difference between a man and a parasite? A man builds, a parasite asks, "Where's my share?" A man creates, a parasite says, "What will the neighbors think?" A man invents, a parasite says, "Watch out, or you might tread on the toes of God."
He also believed that morality and censorship constrained science and arts.
A city where the artist would not fear the censor, where the scientist would not be bound by petty morality, where the great would not be constrained by the small.
Once built, Rapture was a paradise as promised for a time. Plasmas were introduced by Frank Fontaine, who started a smuggling ring once Ryan outlawed anything from the surface. However, the paradise of Rapture wasn't what it promised to all. In the words of Fontaine,
"These sad saps, they come to Rapture thinking they're gonna be captains of industry. But they all forget that somebody's gotta scrub the toilets. What an angle they gave me. I hand these mugs a cart and a bowl of soup, and they give me their lives. Who needs an army when I got Fontaine's Home for the Poor?"
As such, Fontaine started more altruistic activities like opening up a poorhouse, which undermined Ryan's philosophy. Of course, Fontaine was just using the poor denizens of Rapture to further his own goals, not the kindness of his own hearts.
Rapture's changing, but Ryan can't see the wolves in the woods. This Fontaine fellow, he's a crook and a proper tea leaf, but he's got the atom, and that makes him the governor. He's sinking the profits back into bigger and better plasmids, building them Fontaine poorhouses, or like Fontaine recruiting centres. Before we know it, bloke's gonna have an army of splicers. We're gonna have ourselves a whole heap of miseries.
Fontaine was a direct competitor to Ryan, and to his credit, Ryan was happy about Fontaine's success. He saw him as a hard-working man who was building a company and profiting from his own enterprise.
Gregory, don't come whining to me about market forces, and don't expect me to punish citizens for showing a little initiative. If you don't like what Fontaine is doing, well, I suggest you find a way to offer a better product.
He even went as far as to condemn anyone who asked for regulations on plasmids due to their harmful effects, which include mental instability, addiction resulting dependency, physical disfigurement, and seeing ghosts through Assassin's Creed animist logic, but with other people, and not your ancestors.
There has been tremendous pressure to regulate this plasmid business. There have been side effects, blindness, insanity, death. But what use is our ideology if it is not tested? The market does not respond like an infant, shrieking at the first sign of displeasure. The market is patient, and we must be too.
Seems like some poor blighters have started seeing ghosts. Ghosts! Ryan tells me it's a side effect of this plasmid business. One poor sod's memory is getting passed on to another through genetic sampling. Leaks, lunatics, rebellion, and now bleeding ghosts. Ain't life in Rapture grand?
However, once Ryan learned of Fontaine's smuggling ring, he had to act.
Something must be done about Fontaine. While I was buying buildings and fish futures, he was cornering the market on genotypes and nucleotide sequences. Rapture is transforming before my eyes. The great chain is pulling away from me. Perhaps it's time to give it a tug.
His frustration led to him making smuggling treason and punishable by death.
The death penalty and Rapture. Council's in an uproar. Riots in the streets, they say. But this is the time for leadership. Action must be taken against the smugglers. Any contact with the surface exposes Rapture to the very parasites we fled from. A few stretched necks are a small price to pay for our ordeals.
Hanging now, is it? That's what we've come to? Now look, I don't make the laws here, I just enforce them. But I didn't come to Rapture to string men up for running contraband. If Ryan and his crew have their law, then they can have my badge.
Ryan finally cornered Fontaine and set his squad to arrest him, only for Fontaine to go down fighting.
Fontaine knew our blokes were coming. We were done over. Them splicers come screaming out the woodwork, burping fire, spitting ice. Demons out of the Bible they were. I've never seen nothing like it. It wasn't a business he was building. It was an army. The good people of Rapture didn't sign up to see us government types shutting down shops, killing their owners. Even with a ponce like Fontaine. But he brung it upon himself. Instead of copping it on the chin, bugger gets it into his head that he's gonna go down guns blazing. Who does he think he is? John bloody Wayne? We can get on top of this. We can. Here's what we do. We find Fontaine's will and make what was his go to where it was intended. And not into the pockets of us that put him into the ground.
Ryan nationalized Fontaine Futuristics upon his death, that being Fontaine's company that sold the plasmids, becoming what he hated most, a government entity taking over a business.
Ryan nationalized Fontaine Futuristics. He owns it now, lock, stock and barrel. For the good of the city, he says. He'll break it up in due time, he says. I've resigned from the council and lodged me letter of protest, but that's just pissing in the wind. It'll be war, I say, unless somebody stops Ryan, and right fast.
He also rounded up anyone who would work for Fontaine's criminal organization and imprisoned them.
I couldn't believe how much things had changed since I left Dr. Steinman's office. It's like I don't even recognize Rapture no more. I hear they've been rounding up people in Paula Square. I asked Ryan how could he do such things to innocents. He said, innocents. If they haven't chosen to defend Rapture, they've chosen to side with Atlas and his bandits. So there are no innocents. There are heroes, and there are criminals.
As this was occurring, Atlas sprung up and had rallied the prisoners into an army, causing Rapture's civil war, the first attack being what we heard on the earlier audio log. A plasmid's arm race began between Ryan and Atlas.
I begged Mr. Ryan to hand Fontaine Futuristics over to Atlas's boys as a peace offering, but the stupid sod won't listen to reason. Instead, he's just splicing his mob up, giving them more and tougher plasmids. There's an arms race on here in Rapture, but it's not about who can build the best guns and the biggest bombs. It's about who can become less of a man and more of a monster.
A scientist under Ryan, Dr. Suchong, was able to add a mind control component to plasmids to allow Ryan to control users via pheromones. Ryan acknowledges violates his philosophy, but approved it anyway, showing that Ryan is aware of his own hypocrisy, but sees it as necessary to save Rapture.
Dr. Suchong, frankly, I'm shocked by your proposal. If we were to modify the structure of our commercial plasmid line as you propose, to have them make the user vulnerable to mental suggestion through pheromones, would we not be able to effectively control the actions of the citizens of Rapture? Free will is the cornerstone of this city. The thought of sacrificing it is abhorrent. However, we are indeed in a time of war. If Atlas and his bandits have their way, will they not turn us into slaves? And what will become of free will then? Desperate times call for desperate measures. Could I have made mistakes? One does not build cities if one is guided by doubt. But can one govern in absolute certainty? I know that my beliefs have elevated me just as I know that the things I have rejected would have destroyed me. But the city, it's collapsing before my Have I become so convinced by my own beliefs that I have stopped seeing the truth? Perhaps. But Atlas is out there, and he aims to destroy me and to destroy my city. To question is to surrender. I will not question.
Atlas was backed into a corner, and at this point, we arrived in that plane crash. Now, I'd be remiss to not acknowledge that Ryan's philosophy is based off the works of Ayn Rand and her philosophy of objectivism. Most notably her book Atlas Shrugged, which is what Atlas's name is an allusion to. The name Rapture is a reference to an event detailed in the Christian Bible, where our world will be destroyed and all are judged determinately are bit to be reborn into a new world, a new paradise. In the introduction, we see a sign that says all good things flow into the city, which makes this reference a bit more apparent. Though I do admit I might be stretching it a bit. Keeping with the biblical references, Adam and Eve are also referenced. In BioShock, Adam is the name of the item that allows people to rewrite their genetic code to use plasmids and tonics, and Eve is a resource required to use plasmids. Basically being ammo or mana like in a magic system, Adam and Eve in the Bible are the first humans ever created and inhabited the Garden of Eden, but were thrown out when they ate the forbidden fruit from the tree of life. Also, Eve, the item, is typically represented as by an apple in BioShock, which is what the forbidden fruit from the Bible is also represented as. Andrew Ryan described building Rapture as building Eden, which also reappears after Rapture, the event.
If things weren't bad enough, it seems that even our water system sprung a leak. Yep, that's right. Irrigation system in Arcadia is taking on seawater. I told Mr. Ryan when we were building this place, either you build her like a bathtub, or she's going to turn into a sewer. No, McDonough, he said. We're not going to build no bathtub. We're going to build Eden.
If you don't know what the Garden of Eden is, it's basically a paradise made for mankind to reside in as long as they don't break the one rule of eating the forbidden fruit from the tree of life. Well, yeah, they did. Adam and Eve in BioShock are required to create and use plasmids, and plasmids are a large contributor to the fall of Rapture. So Adam and Eve are also responsible for losing Eden, represented by Rapture, in BioShock, as well as the Bible. Or rather, losing paradise, to be more general. There are other references to religion, specifically the Greeks, but we'll get to them when we do as we go through the story. Actually, Atlas Shrugged is a reference to Atlas, a titan who is condemned to order by heaven, shrugging. Our detour requires us to go through a path in the medical pavilion. Here we see a security drone blocking a doorway and we need to hack to turn it back on and get it out of the way. Hacking is just connecting pipes to take some liquid, not sure what it is, from one place to another. It's simple. Although there are overloaded alarm tiles that cause massive damage to you or set off on alerts respectively. Alerts basically just have security drones pester you for a limited time and being detected by a camera will also result in that. Hacking minigames are also randomly generated, so there is a chance to end up with some that are just impossible. Anyway, when you hack a security drone, it becomes a companion of which you can have two at a time. There are also turrets that if you stun with lightning or freeze, you can hack them and they'll turn friendly. You can also hack medical stations to give you discounts and damage enemies who use them, or they'll heal themselves otherwise. And hacking vending machines to get more items for purchase and discounts on them. Anyway, that pathway is locked, and the person with the key is a cosmetic surgeon, Dr. Steinman. Adam's ability to change the genetic structure of one can be used to change an appearance in a desired way, and not just the horrific way the slashes have now.
Ryan and Adam. Adam and Ryan. All those years of study, and was I ever truly a surgeon before I met them? How we plinked away with our scalpels and toy morality. Yes, we could lop a boil here and shave down a peak there, but could we really change anything? No. But Adam gives us the means to do it. And Ryan frees us from the phony ethics that held us back. Change your look, change your sex, change your race. It's yours to change. Nobody else's.
Looks like you need some help.
Whoa! I'm white!
Like everyone else in Rapture, Stein was also driven the same by plasmids and started to obsess with beauty, going as far as to hallucinate beings with Aphrodite.
Aphrodite is walking the halls, shimmering like a scalpel. Steinman, she calls. Steinman, I have what you're looking for. Just open your eyes, and when I see her, she cuts me into 1,000 beautiful pieces.
Aphrodite is the Greek goddess of sexual love and beauty, the latter being what's relevant here, at least I think so. His obsession with beauty slowly drove him insane and began to mutilate his patients, trying to become the Picasso of surgery.
When Picasso became bored of painting people, he started representing them as cubes and other abstract forms. The world called him a genius. I've spent my entire surgical career creating the same tired shapes over and over again. The upturned nose, the cleft chin, the ample bosom. Wouldn't it be wonderful if I could do with a knife what that old Spaniard did with a brush?
Before he went insane, he did do a surgery on Giant McClintock after she was attacked by Atlas's men.
Dr. Steinman said he'd release me today. Ryan didn't come to see me since the New Year's attack, not once. But Dr. Steinman was very attentive. He told me that once the scar tissue was gone, he was gonna fix me right up, make me prettier than any girl I've ever seen. He's sweet, all right. And so interested in my case.
During chasing Steinman, he blocks the passage to him. You'll need to use a splicer grenade to blow away the wreckage. But we'll need a telekinesis plasma to catch one and redirect it into the wreckage. There are 5 kinds of enemy splicers. Sluggish that use melee, Leadhead that use either a pistol or machine gun, Nitro that throws a grenade or a Molotov cocktail, Spider splicers that crawl on the ceiling and throw hooks, and Houdini splicers that teleport and throw fire or ice in later levels. You'd really like to mess with the player before trying to kill them. Most of them mostly just play dead to surprise you, but they're the one who made the mistake because now they're in wrenching distance. On our way to get the telekinesis plasmid, we find a mountain of ice blocking the path. But we can melt it away with the incineration plasmid once we find it somewhere else. That means we have 2 necessary plasmids to progress in this level, and we only have 2 slots for them. So you're gonna have to swap one out until you unlock more plasmid slots. After we defeat Steinman, we get a chance to do just that after we make a moral choice. We witness the death of a Big Daddy and a splicer trying to harvest a little sister before Dr. Tenenbaum shoots him and stops him, and threatens to shoot us before Atlas dissuades her. Dr. Tenenbaum is a scientist that discovered Adam and was discovered to be a prodigy at a young age.
I was at German prison camp, only 16 years old when I realized I have love for science. German doctor, he make experiment. Sometimes he makes scientific error. I tell him of this error, and this make him angry. But then he asks, how can a child know such a thing? I tell him sometimes I just know. He screams at me, then why tell me? Well, I said, if you are going to do such things, at least you should do them properly. At the German prison camp, they put me to work on genetic experiments on other prisoners. They call me das Wunderkind, the wonder child. Germans. All they can talk about is blue eyes and the shape of forehead. All I care about is, why is this one born strong and that one weak? This one smart, that one stupid. All that killing. You think the Germans could have been interested in something useful?
Working in these conditions most likely destroyed any morality she would have had during the time. During her time in Rapture, she noticed a man who had broken his hand during the war playing catch.
I saw one of the smugglers having a game of catching on the docks today. And this surprised me because his hands were crippled during the war. He was unloading the barge the other day when he was bitten from the sea slug. He woke up the next morning and he found he could move his fingers for the first time in years. I asked him if he still had that sea slug. As luck would have it, he did.
The slug produced Adam, and Tenenbaum needed funding to research it.
As the respectable labs have all turned me away, I have turned to Fontaine's smugglers in Port Neptune for supplies. Fontaine's men are pigs. They spit, they stink. But they deliver, and they don't ask questions. They're all terrified of Fontaine. He reminds me a bit of the Germans. So efficient. It wouldn't surprise me if he were soon running things down here.
She discovered to maximize Adam production, the slugs needed a host, and the most suitable host was little girls. Fontaine then started the Little Sisters Orphanage to gather girls that would become Little Sisters.
The augmentation procedure is a success. The slugs alone could not provide enough Adam for serious work, but combined with the host, now bug is embedded in the lining of the host's stomach, and after the host feeds, we induce regurgitation. And then we have 20-30 times yield of usable atom. The problem now is the shortage of hosts. Fontaine says patience, Tannenbaum. Soon, the first home for little sisters will open, and that problem will be solved.
Something Ryan would also do, but he would also forcibly take some girls, to the dismay of some parents.
Darling Masha, we don't know what has happened to you. Ryan's men have taken you away and said you are needed to save Rapture. Who needs a child to save a city? But I see these little girls crawling out of these vents, and I only wonder if you might one day crawl out of this vent and find this note. We look for you, but if you find this, come to us. It's a Fighting McDonald's in room number 7. The code to our room is 7533. We miss you, our darling child. We saw our Masha today. We barely recognize her. That's her, Sam said. You're crazy, I told him. That thing? That is our Masha? But he was right. She was drawing blood out of a corpse by Fontaine Fisheries. And then when she was done, she walked off hand in hand with one of those awful golems. Masha!
During her time with the Little Sisters, Tenenbaum discovered their hatred and disgust towards them, but realized that they were the source of it.
One of the children came and sat in my lap. I push her off. I shout, "Get away from me!" I can see the atom oozing out of the corner of her mouth. It's thick and green. Her filthy hair hanging in her face, dirty clothes, and that dead glow in her eye. I feel hatred, like I never felt before, in my chest, bitter, burning fury. I can barely breathe. And suddenly I know it is not this child I hate.
What makes something like me? I look at genes all day long, and never do I see the blueprint of sin. I could blame the Germans, but in truth I did not find tormentors in the prison camp, but kindred spirits. These children I brutalized have awoken something inside that for most is beautiful and natural, but in me is an abomination. My maternal instinct.
Atlas tells us to harvest the Little Sisters by taking the slug atom, but the process would result in the death of the girl, while Tenenbaum offers us a plasmid that will allow us to cure the Little Sisters, for the price of only getting half the atom, but promises to make it worthwhile, which she does through presence. By the end of the game, if you cure all the girls, you do end up with a similar amount of atom if you had harvested them all, plus some exclusive plasmids and tonics. You get a reward for every third Little Sister saved. I assume this system's kind of like a rather have all the atom now rather than waiting for the present, but I never really had that problem. The present lives at the Gatherer's Garden where we spend the atom, and usually when I get to the garden I've saved about 3 Little Sisters anyway, so it doesn't really work out the way it's intended, if that's how it's supposed to work. The plasmic and tonics make up the difference, so it can't really just be pure atom difference, so all it does is end up tricking greedy players into killing digital children. After this, we have our first Big Daddy fight. He's got a drill hand, and that's his main form of attack, so it's best just to run away from him, while shooting him in the shotgun with the electro bucks if you have them. And if you hack the turns from earlier and they're still around, they'll be really helpful. After that ordeal, we move on to the next area, Neptune's Bounty. An obvious allusion to the god of seed Neptune, but I don't know if it holds any significance beyond that. Right now, we need to make our way through Fontaine's fisheries to get to the smuggler's hideout where Atlas's family is. When we enter the port from the bathysphere, we see a smuggler who has been hung up for us to see, as well as the corpse of a new form of Big Daddy, which we see not too far from it. This one has a rivet gun and throws proximity mines, so, just keeping your distance is going to be enough here. When we get to the fishery, we are blocked by Peach Wilkins, and then attacked by our first spider, Splicer, who we can actually, fight. But we can't kill it due to our pitiful damage to it, so Wilkins scares it off with another drone. He tells us to find a research camera to snag research trace of 3 different spider splicers, and then he'll let us pass. Once we find the research camera, we can research our enemies to gain damage buffs on them and take other rewards by taking a picture of them with it. He also gives us a grenade launcher. We learn more about Wilkins at the end of this level and at the start of the next level, but I'll give it to you now. Wilkins is drawn to Rapture by Ryan's great chain philosophy, where each person pulls the chain forward in human progress, but Discover is not the same for everyone.
We all come down here. Figured we'd all be part of Ryan's great chain. Turns out Ryan's chain is made of gold, and ours are the sort with the big iron ball around your ankle. He's up in Fort Frolic banging fashion models. We're down in this dump yanking guts out of fish. Fontaine's promising something better. He's like one of us, you know? Like he's worked a day in his life. He says meet him at his fish packing joint at 11. I'll go, bring a couple of guys. Hey, it's not like things could get a lot worse.
He found a job at Fontaine Fisheries and soon became part of Fontaine's smuggling ring. There was no out for that smuggling ring, and anyone who tried always ended up dead.
Fontaine's putting the screws on us, and double. He's squeezing us out of 80 points of our cut with the threat of turning us into Ryan if we don't play ball. Son of a bitch. Sammy G comes and tells me he's thinking of going to the constable. And the next day, Sammy G was found in a sack in a salt pond. We got no choice here. We stay on Fontaine's crew and we're gonna catch the gallows. We take powder, and we end up like Sammy G. Oh, there's gotta be another way.
One of Ryan's enforcers, Sullivan, was investigating the smuggling ring, and we found the aftermath of his torturing session with an audio tape.
Mr. Ryan asked me personally to make this clear to you. You give us Fontaine and this whole filthy ring of his, and you'll be knocking back pints up at the Fighting McDonough's. But if you prefer to play the mule, we'll treat you like a mule. Give him a taste, Patrick. What's that? Change of heart, Timmy? Timmy! Ready to talk now?
Go on, Sullivan. Go on and do your dirty. Whatever Ryan thinks he can do to me, Fontaine can do double!
The fear of Fontaine coming from Wilkins persisted in his mind even after his death. Some other audio logs I'd like to point out. Sullivan says that in one of them there's a lockdown in the bathyspheres.
We're putting all the bathyspheres in lockdown until further notice. Ryan had us install some kind of genetic device into the thing, so only Ryan and his inner circle will be able to use them without dispensation. But the boys tell me the keys are pretty unreliable. Sisters, cousins, anybody in the ballpark genetically will be able to come and go as they see fit.
We've used the bathysphere to get around Rapture, so that means that Jack has some relative that had authorization to use the bathyspheres. Also, here we find audio diaries introducing Bill McDonough, a general contractor who ended up earning Ryan's respect and soon joined the city council.
I met Ryan the day me and the lads were installing the bathroom plumbing up in his Posh Park Avenue digs. Oi, says he, what's with all the brass fittings? General contractor had me down for the tip. Well, I says, I suppose it's the contractor then who'll be bailing out your loo once a fortnight, is it? If it's price you're worried about, I'll be picking up the brass, so not to worry, Squire. And why would you be doing that, says he? Well, Mr. Ryan, profit or not, no man bails water out of privies built by Bill McDonough. Next day I finds out I'm Ryan's new general contractor. Mr. Ryan, I believe in Rapture, but that doesn't mean we always win. Fontaine Futuristics is the biggest thing going in Rapture, so let me be plain. When we arrest that tow rag Fontaine for his thieving and smuggling, we must make it clear that we won't touch his business interests. We sit on the council because these poor sods trust us, not because God gave us a chair.
He's also one of the first detractors of Fontaine, seeing him as the true threat that he is.
Rapture's changing, but Ryan can't see the wolves in the woods. This Fontaine fellow, he's a crook and a proper tea leaf, but he's got the atom, and that makes him the governor. He's sinking the profits back into bigger and better plasmids, building them Fontaine poorhouses, or like Fontaine recruiting centres. Before we know it, bloke's gonna have an army of splicers. We're gonna have ourselves a whole heap of miseries.
McDonough was also part of the squad sent to capture Fontaine that ended up killing him.
The good people of Rapture didn't sign up to see us government types shutting down shops, killing their owners. Even with a
ponce like Fontaine. But he brung it upon himself. Instead of copping it on the chin, bugger gets it into his head that he's gonna go down guns blazing. Who does he think he is, John bloody Wayne? We can get on top of this. We can. Here's what we do. We find Fontaine's will and make what was his go to where it was intended. And not into the pockets of us that put him into the ground.
Anyway, once we get the pictures for Wilkin, he lets us into the fishery but confiscates our guns beforehand. Of course, the fool left us with our best weapon, the wrench, and also the camera.
But he can't very well take your plasmids away now, can he?
Oh yeah, and also our plasmids, but the wrench. Thinking we were sent by Fontaine, he betrays us and tries to kill us, but like I said, wrench and plasmids. And camera if you feel like it. We can retrieve our weapons after we kill him. We also see a Power to the People station where we get our choice of an upgrade to a gun. Finally, we enter the smuggling hideout and find a submarine with Atlas's wife and child inside, which Ryan attacks and destroys, but he doesn't know, or at least doesn't comment on the contents of the submarine. He focuses on Jack, not sure why he would appear in Rapture only to try and escape without really accomplishing anything. After this, Atlas promises revenge on Ryan and sends you to Arcadia. In Greek mythology, Arcadia was a garden utopia inspired by a region in Greece by the same name. It's a paradise that was the home of the god Pain and spirits of nature. In BioShock, Arcadia is a garden that functions as the way oxygen is produced for the city. In Arcadia, we meet...
Leave me alone or I'll stick my turrets on the whole damn lot of you!
we're early. As we make our way to the next area, Ryan sends out poison to kill the trees, and since the only source of oxygen in the city has been killed, we seek out Julie Langford's help. She sends us on a fetch quest before inviting us to her hideout. Langford was a botanist from UC Berkeley, and has helped in World War II in Japan by developing ways to kill foliage.
I've been killing trees for 25 years. At Berkeley back in the 20s, on the Japs at Iwo Jima. But I never brought one back from the grave before. I did, Becky. Mama's gonna build her first damn Frankentree. I'm gonna call my little creation the Lazarus Vector. Maybe it'll bring the old gal's career back from the dead as well.
She was hired by Ryan to create Arcadia.
Today, Arcadia was closed off to all but paying customers. The man hires me to build a forest at the bottom of the ocean and then turns a walk in the woods into a luxury. Ryan asked, should a farmer not be able to sell his food? Is a potter not entitled to a profit from his pots? I started to argue with the man, and then I remembered who signed my checks. The only thing worse than a hypocrite is an unemployed one.
In her time, she discovered a way to bring plants back to life, with what she calls a Lazarus Vector. The rose she sent us to retrieve is one such ideas to create the concoction. Upon invitation up to her office, we see as Ryan announced she is in breach of her contract for trying to resurrect the trees he just killed and now has killed her in return. Before she dies, she leaves us a code to her safe so we may retrieve the audio diary with the recipe for the Lazarus Vector. Also, the chemical thrower is on her desk. We need to collect 7 chlorophyll solutions, enzyme samples, and distilled water. This is also the level where Houdini splashes are introduced, and you'll find the chlorophyll samples from them and on their shrines. The other ones in this area started a cult or something. The enzyme from an apiary, since it is produced by bees, and distilled water from a winery that has been using it to water down their wine, or was using them. The apiary and winery are in the farmers market, so you'll have to go there while the Houdini splashers and the shrines are in Arcadia. Once you get the ingredients and come back, we deal with the waves of enemies in Langford's hideout while Lazarus Vector is prepped and deployed. Also, the game introduces the U-invent machines in Arcadia, which are used to craft things with less components being required if you hack them. The U-invent machine is needed to craft the Lazarus Vector. Next comes Fort Frolic. There are shops in this area with displays of valuable things behind windows. The shortness videos will result in an alarm being tripped. Forgot to mention earlier, when an alarm is tripped, you get a security shutdown point to turn off the alarm and deactivate the security drones, but it costs a fee. As you try and get into the bathysphere to the next level, it is sent away as a bunny mask and the figurines appear. Sandra Cohen has blocked your communications with both Atlas and Ryan and invited you to spend time. Before this, however, he tests you by sending a bunch of spider splicers for you to kill. He also filled the previous area with electric tripwires that were introduced in Arcadia. Here's a tip though, if you use telekinesis on a corpse, you can use them to clear out the wires. Anyway, he leads you to a theater where one of his apprentices is playing piano, strapped with explosives. Cohen, not impressed by his performance, blows him up and tells you to take a photo of his now former apprentice. Back in the atrium, Cohen reveals to you his Quantic, which he tells you to put the picture he took on it. He then sends you to kill 3 more of his former disciples that betrayed him. He gives you the crossbow to help in your endeavors. The first one encounters a Houdini splasher that freezes us, but then we thaw out and kill him. The other 2 are in a shopping area, and we'll have to go through certain triggers to get them to appear. There are a number of stores to explore here, but only 2 of them will trigger the actual guys to appear. One actual area is in a strip club called Eve's Garden, where we get a ghost of one of the dancers, Jasmine Jolene.
Jolene was Ryan's mistress and made a deal with Fontaine and Tenenbaum to get impregnated by Ryan and sell the child off to them.
That creepy Dr. Tenenbaum promised me it wasn't going to be a real pregnancy. They'd just take the egg out once Mr. Ryan and I had... Oh, I needed the money so bad. But I know Mr. Ryan's going to suss it out. Gonna know I wasn't being careful. Gonna know I sold the... Mr. Ryan's gonna be so mad at me.
When Ryan found out about the arrangement, he personally killed her. As we walk in the room, we get a vision of the picture of Jack and his parents as it zooms in on his mother. The game is being as subtle as a brick wall here, but honestly I didn't pick up on it the first time around. Then again, it does happen quickly, and I am a little slow when it comes to these kinds of things. We then exit the backstage to find Cohen's disciple, who figures out over here to do, but he just fights as a normal nitro slicer. We also enter the recording studio of Anna Culpepper, who ended up an enemy of both Ryan and Cohen as she insulted Cohen's work, and called it propaganda for Ryan, which it was.
Cohen's not a musician. He's Ryan's stable boy. Ryan's corrupt policies crap all over the place, and Cohen flutters around clearing it up. But instead of using a shovel, like you would with a proper mule, Cohen tidies with a catchy melody and a clever turn of phrase. But no matter how nicely it sounds, he can't really do anything about the smell.
So Ryan told Sullivan to kill her.
I just got the word to put the bump on Anna Culpepper. This isn't some gangster or hard-nosed political operative. We're talking about a dizzy twist what wrote a song or two that got under Ryan's wig.
When we drop it down into a lower level, the last former disciple appears and he sends his spider slicers after us. Once we get back up to him, he behaves like a normal nitro slicer. Once we kill and take the photos of the 3 corpses of the disciples, we can put them in the Quantique. The first picture, he gives you some supplies. The second, he calls you a doubter and sends some splicers to kill you. Once you hold them off, he apologizes and sends you supplies. The final picture prompts him to appear in person and gives you a reward. At this point, he allows you to leave, but you can miss the back of his head like an idiot and then shoot him and begin combat. He fights like Houdini Spicer. He also drops the key to a chest that really doesn't contain anything worth killing him for. Anyway, we move on to Hephaestus, named after the Greek god of blacksmiths, metalworking, and basically any form of craftsman, fire, and volcanoes. Given the volcanic loop of the area, I say it's an apt name. Also, the workshops are here, so another reason. Here, we can find the pathways to Ryan office, blocked with corpses of traitors hanging outside. Notable people are Anna Andersdotter, whose corpse has an audio log directing us to where to go, and McDonough, who tried to kill Ryan to put an end to the Civil War for good.
I never killed a man, let alone a mate. But this is what things come to. I don't know if killing Mr. Ryan will stop the war, but I know it won't stop while that man breathes. I love Mr. Ryan, but I love Ratchet. If I have to kill one to save the other, so be it.
Andrew's daughter, motivated by her daughter being turned into a little sister and wanting to restore Rapture back before Ryan betrayed it, coerced information on how to go about doing it.
I had to go jungle style with that filthy ape for 3 weeks, but he finally spilled the beans on how to get to Andrew Ryan. Generate a sympathetic overload in harmonic core number 3. That's simple. Now all I gotta do is figure out what the hell a sympathetic overload is, and for that matter, a harmonic core number 3. Piece of cake for an electrical engineer. Too bad I designed ladies' shoes. Gonna go see the grease monkeys left alive in heat loss monitoring. See what I can shake out of their trees.
She was given a lead on Supervisor Kybert, an electrical engineer who was creating an EMP to get past Ryan's defenses.
The basic casing is ready. I've got 1 charge of nitroglycerin in my office. That will serve as the catalyst. Now I need a 4R34 lead shield wire stubs to pass the circuit. Then a half can of ionic gel, that's the pretty Betty of the mix. Should send the core into compensation mode, push power down the line and trigger the circuit breaker on Ryan's gate. Well, that's the theory. It'll either work like a charm or blow up half of Rapture. Nothing ventured.
He turned Anne's daughter into Ryan, thinking she was one of his spies, and was killed before he could finish the device.
Ryan's splicers are dragging the young woman off right now. I'm certain she's one of Ryan's spies, sent to feel me out. I think she is. If I'm wrong, an innocent girl will end up on Ryan's bloody trophy wall. If I'm right, well, I'd best be right. The device is almost finished. I can't get soft now, I can't.
The EMP remained unfinished, but we can fix it. What we need: nitroglycerin from Kuiper's office, 4 wide clusters that are used in Big Daddies, and we can find them on corpses that are lying around or one to make your somes, and 2 quart cans of ionic gel that are scattered around the area. Once that's done, we can head over to an area we need to turn a wheel while monsters attack us. But with the camo tonic and the 2 turrets you can hack into proximity mines, you can do it in one go. The wheel lets out the magma that clears them some water to access the place the EMP bomb needs to detonate. On our way there, Ryan reveals that he's figured out schoolyard and gives us some hints. As this happens, Jack has flashes of the family photo again, this time zooming in on his father. When we activate the EMP, we dash back to the entryway to Ryan's office, as an alarm blares. Once we get to the door, we arrive in Rapture's central control, and Ryan appears on the television screen and tells us that he is Jack's father, and he cannot bring himself to kill him. And, he lets him know he's not mad, he's just disappointed. He is mad at Atlas, though, and starts a self-destruct sequence of all of Rapture. Also, we can find an audio diary here that reveals we can use the Vita chambers because they are set to Ryan's genetics, and since Jack is his son with similar genetics, he can use them as well.
Initial deployment, Vita chamber. Client Ryan Industries, stage 1, age complete. Sinclair and Alexander tried to explain the science to me, but Suchong does not believe them. They keep saying plasmid reconstruction this and quantum entanglement that, and then poof, dead people come back to life. Bullshit! Of course, Ryan will only allow it to be tuned to his genetic frequencies for the testing.
On the way to Ryan's office, we find the room where Ryan put together Jack's identity with ideologues from Suchong, revealing that Jack was rapidly aged up, having the body of a 19-year-old at age 1.
Advanced deployment, Lot 111, Dr. Suchong, client Fontaine Futuristics. Baby is now a year old, weighs 58 pounds, and possesses gross musculature of a fit 19-year-old. The results are disappointing, but within expected tolerances.
An audio diary of him getting Jack to snap the neck of a puppy by using the words, "Would you kindly?"
Is that your puppy? She's very pretty.
Thank you, Papa Suchong.
Break her neck for me.
What?
Break that sweet puppy's neck.
No, please.
Break that puppy's neck. Would you kindly?
No.
Very good.
Once it gets to Ryan, he gives Jack a speech behind a window, resulting in flashbacks revealing info on past events, before toying with him using the phrase, "Would you kindly," to show its power, before finally commanding his own death.
The scene is so well made that the only way I feel like I can express it is just by playing it full here.
The assassin has overcome my final defense, and now he's come to murder me. In the end, what separates a man from a slave? Money? Power? No. A man chooses. A slave obeys. You think you have memories. A farm. A family. An airplane. A crash. And then this place. Was there really a family? Did that airplane crash? Or was it hijacked? Forced down. Forced down by something less than a man, something bred to sleepwalk through life until they are activated by a simple phrase spoken by their kindly master. Was a man sent to kill, or a slave? A man chooses. A slave obeys. Come in. Stop, would you kindly? Would you kindly? Powerful phrase. Familiar phrase.
Would you kindly? Would you kindly get this? Would you kindly find that? Would you kindly find that? Would you kindly find? Would you kindly get this? Would you kindly head to Ryan's office and kill the son of a bitch?
Sit, would you kindly? Stand, would you kindly? Run, Stop! Turd. A man chooses. A slave obeys. Kill! A man chooses. Obey!
Hurry now! Grab Ryan's genetic key! Now would you kindly put it in that goddamn machine?
You can also find a vitamin chamber in Ryan's office that's been deactivated, so he wouldn't be revived after you killed him. I got it handed to him. He just accepted he was going to die there and chose it. He may have been a hypocrite, but he did hold on to the phrase, "a man chooses, a slave obeys," until the very end. Afterwards, we take a genetic key off his corpse and plug it into central control of Rapture and hand over the control of Rapture to Atlas, who reveals himself to be Frank Fontaine. He then sends his security drones after Jack, but with the help of Kira's sisters, he escapes and is knocked out when he falls down the vent shaft. Fontaine's plans are explained by him and Tenenbaum throughout the following missions where Jack is trying to get revenge on him, but I'll summarize it now. Fontaine knew he was being cornered by Ryan, so he faked his death and became Atlas to give himself some more freedom.
Never play a man for the short con when you can play him for the long one. Atlas is the longest con of all. Ryan wanted Frank Fontaine dead. I just gave him what he wanted. As Atlas, I got a new face, a clean record, and a fresh start. Now, it's time to take back Rapture.
It'll be so pleased.
Oh, Mrs. McClintock! What are you doing here? Let me just turn this off.
Fontaine was always a con man, and he's very convincing, adopting completely different accents and appearances to do so.
The fella in my line of work takes on a variety of aliases. Hell, once I was even a Chinaman for 6 months.
Fontaine knew he needed an ace in the hole, that being Jack.
I remember when me and the crowd put you in that sub. You were no more than 2. You were my ace in the hole, but you were also the closest thing I ever had to a son.
He needed Jack since his similar to genetics that Ryan would confuse Rapture's security measures.
Ryan's flesh and blood. Why'd I go to the trouble? Otherwise, you'd have been cut in 2 by the first security bot you crossed paths with. But not Ryan. He made it so his security would recognize his genetic structure. With half his genes, you ain't immune, but you got just enough to throw their metallic mooks off their game.
He hired Tenenbaum and Sujong to prep him for use as his ace in the hole if the need ever arrives, before sending him topside in a submarine with fake memories being implanted in his mind. I assume that's why we get a flash of Jack's photo of his family when he entered the Slugger's hideout, as that's when he actually left Rapture to his family. When he was backed into a corner, he called in Jack and had him hijack the plane and create the crash from the beginning of the game. Also, Fontaine's family isn't real.
Hop up, Mr. B. No time to waste.
I really wound you up with that wife and child bit. Oh, me poor Moira. I wee baby Patrick.
When Jack wakes up from falling down the shaft, he finds himself in Tenenbaum's safe house with Kira's little sisters. There was some different dialogue based on if you harvested some of them, but not much. Tenenbaum has freed Jack from the "would you kindly" phrase, but not everything, so she sends you to find a way to fully cure yourself in Suchong's flat. Once you exit the safe house, Fontaine contacts you and tells you to get stepped on by Big Daddy, but notices you haven't done so and concludes Tenenbaum freed you from his conditioning somehow. I mean, I know he's telling Jack to send himself to the nearest Vita chamber, but he could just be taking the command literally and going to find a Big Daddy to stomp on him. Either way, Fontaine activates another of his mental conditioning, Code Yellow, to slowly stop Jack's heart. This translates to lessening our max health and gameplay at certain times. Once we get to Suchong's flat in Olympus Heights, an allusion to Mount Olympus, home of the Greek gods, we found out Fontaine, fearful he'd have the same conditioning used on Jack against him, had Suchong make an antidote.
Fontaine's become some kind of boogeyman in Rapture. That myth gives him power. But peel back Flim Flam and a humbug, he's just another conman. And like all conmen, he worries he'll end up on the wrong side of grift. That's why he commissioned Lot 192, the antidote to the mental control plasmid. Fontaine said I better not tell anybody about the antidote, not even Tenenbaum. And Suchong is inclined to listen.
We also have access to the apartments of other people. Cohen is in his apartment if you didn't kill him, and to Houdini's place will be dancing there. Interrupting their dance will cause him to run down from his quarters to kill you. Doing so will unlock his quarters, which contain the powers of the people station. So don't kill Cohen in Fort Frolic, kill him here. Or not at all, I guess. I mean, I don't know why you wouldn't, but I guess you don't have to.
Anna Culpepper's apartment is also here,
where we find an audio diary revealing Sullivan did kill her in her own bathtub, but he's deeply disturbed after doing so.
When it was done with Culpepper, I left her as she was in the bathroom. I seen she had a blanket half knitted by her bed. It was nice, you know, black and red, real pretty. So I took it, so I could, you know, have somebody finish it, so it could be of use to someone. It just didn't seem right to leave it lying there all by itself.
Back to the main quest. Tenenbaum stole a sample of the antidote to find out what it was, but defected from Fontaine and became a target of his before she could. When we get to her apartment, we see that it's already been ransacked and the antidote was taken to Fontaine's apartment, which we head over to and take ourselves. Unfortunately, it's only half the dosage we need, and we need to get over to Suchong's clinic in Apollo Square to find the other dose. Apollo is a reference to the god of archery, arts, and healing. I assume the healing thing is the most apt thing here. After the half dosage we get, our max health goes back to normal, but we have no control over what plasmid we can lose, even having a chance to get ones we didn't even purchase. We do have complete control over what weapon we can use, so it's not that much of a problem really. But you will be forcibly changed to plasmids in the middle of a fight. We also cannot purchase anything from the Gatherer's Garden. When we get to Suchong's clinic,
we find him at the wrong end of a Big Daddy's drill and the rest of the antidotes.
Fully cured, we can now head over to where Fontaine is. On the way there, we can find Fontaine's house for the poor, where we find out what happened to Diane McClintock. Brian had basically abandoned her at the attack, and she blamed the attackers for disfiguring her.
Stood up again. Second time this week. Ever since my face was... Well, Steinman worked on me, but it was never the same since the blast. Being alone so much gives a girl time to think. Who could hate me so much they'd ruin me like this? What did I do to them? You know, I keep thinking of all them bandits and terrorists Ryan's got locked up in Apollo Square, and I get so mad. Sometimes I can hardly breathe. If I could only confront them, tell them what they did to me, how they're ruining everything for me, for Rapture, maybe I feel better.
She went to Apollo Square to tell them off for their attack, only to find people being imprisoned and being killed by Ryan's guards.
I was so angry when I came down here, but my God, I had no idea. There's armed men all over the place. I saw a woman climb over the fence trying to escape. One of Ryan's guards pointed at her and she lit on fire. Just like that. What's happening here?
She soon met Fontaine pretending to be Atlas. This resulted in her being disillusioned of Ryan, only to fall for the illusion of Atlas, who she started working for.
The people here have grown to trust me. Ryan's mistress, and still they take me in. They finally brought me to Atlas. Without him, the people of Apollo Square would give up. I asked him if he was going to lead the people in some kind of uprising against Ryan. He sighed and said, I am not a liberator. Liberators do not exist. These people will liberate themselves. I thought Andrew Ryan was a great man. I was a fool.
When she watched Fontaine recording something in his normal voice, he killed her to hide his secret.
We went on a raid outside the wire today. We snagged 31 rounds of buckshot, 4 frag grenades, a shotgun, and 34 Atom. We lost McGee, Epstein, and Vallette.
We got one of those goddamn big daddies in the bargain, though. There was something awful they had to do to that little girl to get the atom, but we didn't start this thing. Ryan did. I can't wait to tell Atlas. He'll be so pleased.
We get over to the point Prometheus being referenced to the Greek titan of fire, who stole fire from the gods and delivered it to humanity, and was trained to a mountain to be continuously eaten by vultures as punishment. I'm not really sure what the relevance is to the area, but that's what his story is.
Alright, so I actually looked up what Prometheus is. Apparently, he's also credited with creating humanity from clay, which makes more sense for the area. And apparently it wasn't a vulture, but an eagle that was eating his liver specifically. But hey, that's what I get for trying to go this off memory from a book I read in high school. This area is where the Big Daddies are created by Dr. Suchung, and the Little Sisters are housed after Ryan took over Fontaine Futuristics. At the start of this level, we chase Fontaine, but he escapes, and the only way to get to him is by getting a Little Sister open the doors leading to him. To do this, we need to become a Big Daddy. Kind of. The Big Daddy's organs are connected to the suit directly, but Jack is just putting on the outfit. Except that he does get his voice box mutilated so he sounds like one.
Fontaine's scary son of a bitch. But Ryan cheap son of a bitch. You can no reuse protector suit. Take a man, graft the skin and organs straight into suit. Otherwise your suit not work. Ryan say Big Daddy too expensive. Ryan can go suck an egg.
Fontaine keeps saying this is a one-way street, and that's true for the actual process, but we're just putting the suit, the head, and the shoes, and maybe he can have his voice fixed with Adam, so maybe it's not a completely one-way street, like he's advertising. Of course, it is one of Fontaine's taunts to get you to stop pursuing him. The Big Daddy parts are in the assembly area, except for the boots that are sent somewhere else due to the postal office being incompetent.
God damn it. The Big Daddy boots need to be shipped here, not the damn library. What kind of idiot is Ryan hiring nowadays? This kind of bullshit never happened on the Fontaine.
The boots make the Big Daddy stomping noise when you walk. The suit gives you a damage resistance, and the head obscures your vision. After getting Jack's voice mutilated and spraying himself with pheromones that only the Little Sisters can like, he can call a Little Sister by whacking a vent with his wrench. Finally, we arrive at the last level, the Proving Grounds, which is a museum. I don't think the name is a reference to anything. This level is an escort mission where you must have a Little Sister open doors as you protect her. Since she's a cured Little Sister, she can die, but in that case you can call another by whacking the vent. Despite being cured, the mental conditioning is still there, and still harvest Adam for corpses, leading to 3 stand and defend portions of the escorts. Also, for some reason, the security systems are non-hostile, except for the turrets that only target the Little Sister and not Jack for some reason. At the end, we get a bunch of supplies and our last chance to purchase anything before the final showdown with Fontaine, who have been spicing out to a significant amount while we were making our way over. We'll need the tool for the Little Sister's drain of Adam and finally defeat him. When we finally meet Fontaine, we see he's taken the form of Atlas from the cover of the book Atlas Shrugged, and we can drain him of Adam when he's strapped up to a device that injected him with the Atom. He has 3 phases, but they're all super easy. You can get like 2 3/4 of the fight with a grenade launcher and all of its ammo types. The first phase is fire, the second is ice, and he sets off an alarm, but there's a shoot-off close by, so, not really a big deal. Finally, he calls on some splicers and uses lightning, but this is endgame Jack, so it's not an issue. Honestly, it's like a super easy fight. At the end of the fight, Jack gets knocked out and 5 Little Sisters appear and finally kill Fontaine. Now, there are 2 endings, well 3, but the third is the same as the other, but Tenenbaum narrates it with a more of a sad tone than an angry tone. I'll refer to that as the evil ending. The evil endings, which happen if you harvest 2 or more Little Sisters, is that Jack takes over Rapture and captures a nuclear submarine with some splicers. If you harvest all of them, you're supposed to get the mad tone and the sad tone if you only harvest 2 or more, but I couldn't get the sad tone to trigger. If you rescue all the Little Sisters, you get the happy ending. Well, you can't harvest one, but why? There's like no reason to just harvest one of them. Anyway, Jack adopts the 5 little girls that kill Fontaine, or I assume it's those 5, could be some other 5, but 5 nonetheless, and raises them. The last scene is of him on his deathbed, where the girls are now grown up, sitting by his side. And that's BioShock. Its place in video game history is well deserved, and is extremely well known for the twist with Fontaine, as the tutorial man is the one who ends up betraying you at the end, and making people realize they were being pushed by the narrative of the game, only to be further pushed by the narrative of the game by another character. It's still a solid game without a twist, but that's why most people give it credit for including the intro and the death of Andrew Ryan. And that's all I gotta say. Still haven't figured out another way to say goodbye, so bye. This video should have been out like months ago, but unfortunately for me, every time an audio log session came up, my desire to continue editing just kind of dropped. I think you can tell in the video too, because there's nothing going on in terms of visuals during those sections, because I couldn't think of a single thing to do to make it more interesting. Like, it didn't feel right to put it up
like an image to say what they're talking about, and it's kind of hard to anyways, because what they're talking about isn't really shown in game either. And I'm not about to make like a bunch of images for every single audio log, especially with the Tenenbaum's background. I don't think I'm big enough to get away with something like that. I think this is the closest I've been to a good video, but I mean, I'd hope I was. I mean, I hope every video is closer to what I call a good video and not like going backwards. You kind of hope when you do something more and more that you get better at it, and I do think I am, but well, I suppose that's not really for me to judge. But it's not like anyone's watching at this point in time, so it's not going to get feedback or whatever. So anyways, I was recording this. 2K, who now owns the BioShock franchise, they decided to make a launcher for the remastered versions of BioShock 1, BioShock 2, and also BioShock Infinite. There's no remastered version, so that's just base game. And they called it a quality of life improvement. Who out here wants more launchers? No, they just want to do it so they can get more money through their service instead of having to go through Steam for fucking money. They don't give a shit about the quality of life. I'm pretty sure like the game was unplayable on Linux during the time when they first introduced the launcher. So ain't no way of the quality of life shit. Like, come on. Okay, they fixed it eventually, but I mean, maybe that's something more about to say how long it fucking took me to edit this video. Because this footage was, well, I started editing this video before the Subnautic video, and then when I had the footage for that video, I wanted to come back to it. I was going to come back to this, but I guess it was too long because I kind of forgot where all of my clips were, and I had to research for them again, and probably didn't help that the Subnautica video was a lot more work than I thought it was going to be. Because I thought it was going to be like a quick thing, like I just I just stitched together a lot of the gameplay, cut out a bunch of the bits that kind of scavenging supplies, and I'd get right back to this. Like maybe after like a week of being off of editing after I've uploaded the Subnautica video, but now I don't know what it was, but I just did not want to edit for like the longest time for some fucking reason. Like at least a month. And when I got back into it, I could barely keep going because of the audio logs. It was bad, man. It was not good. I guess it's like one of the reasons I'm not ever gonna do YouTube full time. But I do have more ideas for videos. I don't know how long it is gonna be till I start making the next one, but I have plenty of ideas. I have another idea for a big video, or rather, it's not a big video, but it's gonna be a big game. So getting footage of that's gonna be annoying. But I think I'm gonna hold off on doing that one, maybe for a couple smaller ones, and then maybe I'll try to do the thing where I collect the footage, start editing, and then I'll start collecting footage for another video and make that video. But I mean, we saw how it went for this video. I guess we'll see how it goes with that one. That's all for me now. I think I'm just gonna start owning, like, just saying bye as my outro. It just feels like kind of fading for some random guy just to say bye, you know, because it's just so neutral. Because it's just such a neutral response. It makes a lot more sense than like having like a wishing you the best or something. Because I don't feel like that fits really what I'm trying to be here. So bye.